today's video, I'm doing a full updated review of Time4Learning. It's been 2 years since I did a full demo and review for you, and a lot has changed since then. So today I'm going to walk you through absolutely everything you need to know about Time4Learning. We'll see samples of courses from elementary, middle, and high school. We'll talk about how you can set things up and view reports on the parent dashboard. And we'll take a look at some brand new courses that just rolled out. And if after watching this video you decide that Time4Learning is something that you want to try in your family, I have left a link for you in the video description below where you can go to get $10 off. Okay, we've got a lot to cover, so let's get started. So first, a little overview of what Time4Learning is all about. Time4Learning is an online homeschooling program that is available for grades pre-K all the way through high school. It includes all of the core courses you need plus elective options. Everything is fully customizable, so you can mix and match grade levels for different subjects and set your child's schedule up however you want to. It's especially great for busy parents who need a program that their kids can follow along with every day on their own. But it also gives you all the tools that you need as a parent to track your child's progress and make changes to the curriculum whenever you need to. I also want to make sure that you understand that Time4Learning is not a school. It is an online homeschooling program. This means that it works like a curriculum that your child just completes online rather than in a book. So your child won't be graduating from Time4Learning. Instead, they will graduate from your homeschool, which is perfectly acceptable. And Time4Learning will give you all the tools that you may need for reporting requirements if your state has any, as well as tools to create a diploma and a transcript when the time comes. As far as pricing goes, Time4Learning is one of the most affordable, if not the most affordable online homeschooling programs out there. The cost is $39.95 a month, no matter which grade level you choose. And remember, you can save $10 off your first month if you use the link that I've left for you in the video description below. And when you're shopping on their website, don't let it confuse you that you have to shop by grade level. You're still going to be able to access other grade levels so you can customize your curriculum. Just start with the grade level that is closest to your child's current level, and you can make changes to the courses later. If you choose to pay for a full year upfront instead of monthly, you will save 30% off. So that's a great way to save money if you are sure that this is the right program for you. They also offer a sibling discount. So you save 10% off if you have 2 students using the program, 20% off for 3 to 5 students, and 25% off for 6 or more students. Many online homeschooling programs do not offer discounts for multiple students, so this is really helpful. Time4Learning is also an approved vendor for ESA programs in Wyoming, Arkansas, Arizona, Florida, Idaho, New Hampshire, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, Utah, and West Virginia. So if you live in one of those states, you may be able to use your ESA funds to pay for your membership. Okay, so now that we've gone over the basics, let's start looking at the Time4Learning program in more detail. We will be reviewing courses from elementary, middle, and high school. But make sure to watch it all the way through because some of the mechanics of how everything works, I'm only going to go over once. And then after we look at the courses from the student's point of view, we will have a detailed overview of the parent side of things. Okay, so we're going to start with elementary school. I'll show you 2 examples of courses, one from 2nd grade and one from 3rd grade. They recently launched a new social studies and a new math course, so I want to show you samples from those courses. So here is the main screen for the student dashboard. Here you will see all of the courses that you have assigned for your student. So they can just pick a course here to get started. Or if you have created a custom plan for them, then they would click on My Plan. I will show you how to set up a custom plan a little later in the video. If you set one up, then students would come here and they'll be able to see exactly which activities they should complete each week. So this is definitely a better way for students to know what they need to get done each day. But if you don't set it up, then students would just click on one of the subjects and go to the next activity to get started. If we open up one of the courses here, we can see all the chapters that are included in this course over on the left. This second grade social studies course has 11 chapters, and within each chapter are going to be several lessons. Most lessons will include several different activities, including some offline work and a quiz, as well as a test at the end of each chapter. And just so you know, you can go in any order. Nothing is locked. So that's another reason it's best to make the custom plan so your child knows what they should be working on. But it could also be helpful if you're using this as a supplement because you can easily jump around and choose any activity or lesson that you want to. And if you aren't sure whether or not a lesson has been completed, just look for the green check mark, which will show on completed activities. You will also see the date and time that the lesson was completed. Graded activities will also show the most recent score. Let's take a look at one of the lessons from Chapter 3. This lesson starts with a series of short videos to introduce the topic. And if you want to see the video transcript, you can do that over here. Let's watch a little bit of one of these videos now.
Oh, do you feel the way the clay in the bottom of the stream squishes between your toes?
I do. It's so soft and cool, and the reddish color of the clay is bright.
Sometimes my abuela and I come here to collect clay. She uses it to make bowls and plates. Whoa, that's really cool.
Yeah, my mom bought one of Abuela's bowls. It's the same reddish color.
That's just like in the newest comic. Look here. Frill is using sticks found in nature to make picture frames.
I want to try to do that sometime. So, Leo, what's our next quest? Let's see. To earn our next badge, we'll need to answer the question, how does the location of a community affect the people?
Let's get started.
To find out how a community's location affects people, we'll need to identify ways people use the location's natural features to have fun and meet their needs.
All communities are different. The natural features, plants, animals, and even the types of rocks found in a community change based on where that community is located. Some communities are located near tall mountains. Others have rivers and streams with lots of trees, and others have open land with soil, perfect for growing plants. Communities also have different natural resources. Natural resources are things found in nature that can be used to meet people's needs, like water for drinking or fish that can be caught to eat. The people who live in a community use the land around them. Let's look at a few examples. The United States has 3 major mountain ranges. People who live in communities near the mountains use the mountains to have fun and to meet their needs. In the winter, they go skiing down the mountain. In the summer, they use the mountains for hiking and exploring. Mountains also help people meet their needs. In the summer, when snow from the mountains melts, it provides fresh water for people to drink and to use for cooking and for cleaning. The ocean is another natural feature. The United States is between the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. For communities that live near the ocean, the people go out to the beach to play. The ocean helps people in a community meet their needs too. People there eat freshly caught fish for dinner, and some of them may get jobs driving ships filled with supplies people in other communities need. The United States also has an area called the Great Plains. It is a flat, mostly grassy area with soil that's good for growing plants. Farmers who live and work in the nearby communities use the land to meet their needs. They grow crops like wheat, soybeans, and corn. They also grow cotton, which can be used to make clothes, towels, or blankets. There are a variety of animals living in the Great Plains. Some people have fun going to see the wild animals or taking pictures of them from afar. Others like to ride horses in the open areas for fun.
After the video is a fun activity to check for understanding. One thing I like about Time4Learning as opposed to some other online homeschooling programs is that they do mix up the types of activities so it's not so repetitive. Some other programs, all you ever do is answer multiple choice questions, which can get monotonous. There are also some riddles to solve here where kids would click the picture for the correct answer. The next activity in this lesson follows a similar format, with a series of short videos and some interactive activities to support the material taught in the videos. See how the activities here are different than the last lesson? That's what keeps it from becoming boring. After that, we have an offline activity on storm safety. So you would just print this off for your child to do offline. After that is another activity on creating an emergency safety plan. And then there is a short quiz to check for understanding at the end of the lesson. And this will be graded automatically, so you will see how you did right away. If you didn't do so well, you can go back and try again. So that's what a typical second grade social studies lesson is like on Time4Learning. Now let's switch over and take a look at a third grade math lesson. So you can see here that the layout for this course looks the same, but we have 15 chapters in this course. Each lesson will include quite a few different activities, including instruction, practice activities, and a quiz. There are also end of chapter tests. Some of the activities also include a resource for you to print for some offline work. So this looks similar to what we saw with the new social studies curriculum. The first activity in the lesson will include some short videos and some interactive activities. So your child would watch the video and then attempt the included activities. The next activity is a little different. It's another way to look at the lesson and gain some more understanding. I like that there are different interactive things that you get to do rather than just always only answering a series of multiple choice questions. This is much more interactive. This lesson includes quite a few different lessons and practice activities. And then when you're all done with the lesson, you can attempt the quiz and see your results right away. Now there are a few more things to show you on the student dashboard, but first let's switch over to middle school. In my last video, I showed a sample of one of their science and social studies courses for middle school. So this time we'll look at 7th grade English and 8th grade math. So as you can see, the student dashboard looks the same here. There are a few extra courses this time because you do get some more elective options when you get into middle school. As before, your child could just pick one of these courses from the main screen and start where they left off, or they can go to the My Plan section as long as you have created a custom plan for them. And that way they will be able to see what they need to have completed each week. So let's look at the language arts course. There are only 4 main chapters in this course, but if you scroll down, you can see each chapter includes more lessons. So it balances out. As we saw before, each lesson includes several different types of activities, instruction, and a quiz to check for understanding. At this level, the lessons usually start with a sort of warm-up activity before the actual lesson. And this activity does include write-in responses. These will be graded by the system, but the results take a little longer than they would with a multiple choice question. Once completed and graded, kids will be able to see any feedback on their assignments. And don't worry, they can't just type a bunch of nonsense or leave it blank. Otherwise, their grade is going to reflect that. If there are any offline resources for a lesson, you can open them up and print them out. And the lessons will also include video instruction. So let's take a look at one of the videos together now.
What does it mean to analyze an argument? You might think of arguments as something you have with your friends, like debating whether pineapple belongs on pizza. Let's apply that idea to English classes where an argument is when an author or speaker writes to persuade you of something.
When you're analyzing an argument, you're figuring out what the author believes and how and why the author is trying to convince you to agree. So you'll want to ask a couple of questions. What's the author's main point, and how does the author support it?
The main point is what the author is trying to convince you of. It could be a strong opinion, a claim, or a belief that they want you to agree with. Here's the trick. The main point is not always the first thing you read. It could be hidden in the middle or end of a text. So how do you find it? Let's look at some of the best practices for finding an author's main point.
First, you should look for their thesis statement. The thesis is usually a clear sentence or two that tells you the author's main argument. You'll often find it near the beginning or end of an introduction or in the conclusion.
Next, you'll need to pay attention to repeated ideas. If an author keeps mentioning the same idea over and over, chances are it's connected to their main argument.
All right, next up, look for strong claims. Strong statements, things that seem bold or controversial, are often the main point. For example, if you are reading an article about climate change, an author might write something like, "The future of our planet depends on all of us."
Finally, it's time to check the conclusion. Authors often restate their argument at the end of their writing. It's like a final reminder of what they've been trying to convince you of the whole time.
Whether it's a speech, an article, or even a movie, arguments are everywhere. So, next time you're reading, try finding the main point first and then see how the author supports it.
In addition to the videos, there will be different types of activities as part of the lesson, such as this activity where you need to drag the answers to the correct category. So it's not repetitive. There are different types of activities. And then there is even another writing activity here. So students would need to actually type in their answer here after reading the instructions. And finally, at the end of the lesson, there will be a quiz. And the quiz will also likely have write-in responses that kids will need to complete. Now let's switch over and take a look at the math course. There are only 4 chapters included in this 8th grade math course, but you can see there are many lessons included in each chapter. These lessons will start with a warm-up activity just like we saw for the language arts course. Then there will be a lesson video, and there is also a resource that you can print out. And now let's just watch some of the lesson video together.
Hello everybody, welcome to Scientific Notation Jeopardy! Today we're competing in a fast-paced game where you'll need to think big, think small, and think smart with exponents. Scientific notation helps us simplify massive numbers like how far away the closest star is, or teeny tiny measurements like the width of a red blood cell. By the end of this game, you'll be a scientific notation pro, ready to tackle the biggest and smallest numbers in the universe. Let's see what we got! Heyo! Welcome to Scientific Notation Jeopardy! Today we're tackling the numbers that are so massive and so tiny that writing them out normally would take forever. To make these extreme numbers easier to handle, we'll use scientific notation. Let's see how well you can think big and small. All right, here's your question. How many kilometers away is Proxima Centauri, the closest star to the sun? Maybe 1 million kilometers? No, wait. Space is huge. Maybe 1 billion kilometers. Not even close. The actual answer is 40 trillion kilometers. That's 40 trillion kilometers. Wow. So I was just a tiny bit off. Let's make this number easier to write using scientific notation. Start with 40 trillion. Move the decimal 13 places to the left until we have a number between 1 and 10. That gives us 4.0 times 10 raised to the 13th power kilometers. Correct answer. 4.0 times 10 raised to the 13th power kilometers. So the exponent is just how many places we moved the decimal. That means big numbers use positive exponents because we're shifting the decimal left to make the number smaller and easier to write. If I see something like 10 raised to the 13th power, I know it represents a ridiculously huge number. Now, let's try a tiny number. Okay, now let's go super small. How many meters wide is a human red blood cell? Let's guess. Maybe 1 meter? Whoa! Imagine a basketball-sized red blood cell. That would be a problem. Let's rethink that. Okay. Maybe a centimeter. No, not even close. The actual answer is 0.000008 meters. All right, so I was off again, but no worries. Let's write this in scientific notation. Start with 0.000008. Move the decimal 6 places to the right to make it 8.0. That gives us 8.0 times 10 raised to the negative 6 power meters. The correct answer, 8.0 times 10 raised to the negative 6 power meters. So negative exponents just mean we're dealing with tiny numbers. A negative exponent tells us how many times to divide by 10. The more negative, the smaller the number. If I see 10 raised to the negative 6 power, I know it means something really, really small. And that's the game. Let's go over what we learned. Big numbers use positive exponents, moving the decimal to the left. Small numbers use negative exponents, moving the decimal to the right. And most importantly, the closest star is way farther away than I thought. And a red blood cell, way smaller than I thought. Looks like I'm already thinking in scientific notation.
There are actually several lesson instruction videos here that students will need to watch, but they are all relatively short. So it's broken up into several pieces rather than being just one long lecture video. And after the lesson videos, there will be practice problems to complete, and these are a mix of multiple choice and write-in responses. I think it's important that it's not always all multiple choice. Sometimes it can actually be easier to work back from the answers. I've done that when testing math programs when I was too lazy to actually figure out the problem. To me, it's easier when you have the answer options. But I know it's hard with math when it's online. And then at the end of the lesson, we have a quiz to check for understanding. Okay, so that was a little sample of what the Time for Learning curriculum is like for middle school. Now let's look at a couple of high school courses. This time, let's take a look at physics and US government. So here we have the same student dashboard, which should be familiar to you by now. And again, if you created a plan for their schoolwork, then they would go to My Plan and see everything they need to do by the day or week to stay on track. The physics course has 9 chapters, and the lessons follow a similar format as the middle school course that we just looked at. Lessons usually start with an overview, followed by a warm-up activity. This activity involves answering the prompt in several complete sentences. And then we'll have a lesson video, and there is an offline resource here as well. So now let's watch a bit of the video together.
Energy plays key roles in many aspects about our lives. It fuels our bodies, powers our electronic devices, powers all the vehicles we're riding in, or maybe we'll ride in the future. It powers our brains. And the most important energy source in the world powers pretty much everything, our sun. So this entire chapter is going to be about energy. But before we jump into the word energy, we need to talk about work. And it's not the kind of work that you might be thinking about. So let's find out about those details in this lesson. So what is work in terms of physics? Work transfers energy between objects. And we'll talk more about that later, but that's why we need to talk about work in the first place. So in physics, work is done on an object when a force that's happening on that object is parallel to the motion. So I want you to think about those key words. The force that's happening in the object has to be parallel to the object's motion. I'm going to do a couple demos, and I want you to decide, am I doing work in terms of this definition in physics? I'm holding a crate here with my hands below it. Think about which way the force is applied on this crate compared to its motion direction, and then decide if I'm doing work in terms of physics. So I'm holding the crate, just gonna walk forward, do some circles, sideways. So am I doing work on this crate? I'm actually not doing work in terms of physics because the force for my hands is this way. It's upwards. But which direction is the object moving? It's sideways. So let's look at those directions relative to each other.
After the video is a short quiz to check for understanding. And then there are some more videos and more activities here, all part of the same lesson on defining work and energy. And at the end is a graded quiz, and this one happens to be multiple choice, so we will get our grade as soon as we finish the quiz. Okay, let's look at one more lesson. Here is the U.S. Government and Politics course. This course has 5 chapters. The lessons here are pretty long, but they are not meant to all be completed in one day. Most likely, a typical plan would include a few activities from each course per day. And just like in the science course, we'll start with a short overview before getting into the actual lesson. Let's watch a bit of one of the lesson videos together now.
Welcome back to U.S. Government and Politics. In previous lessons, we've looked at other portions of the First Amendment, specifically freedom of speech, what you can say, when it can be limited, and so on. Today we're going to do the same, but we're going to do it for freedom of the press, basically the media and what they could print back in the day. Now it applies to anywhere the press may be. It could be on TV, radio, social media. It's still the same principles apply. So first, let's look at it. The First Amendment of the Constitution guarantees freedom of the press. We know this from our studies so far. However, there are times when this freedom is limited. The question is it censorship, which prohibits any part of books, films, or news? Or is it acceptable? Think about when it would be acceptable to limit the freedom of the press. First is a gag order. This is when a defendant's right to a fair trial would be impinged if newspapers or the media in general said something about that case. The reason is that defendant can have a jury of his peers. If that jury hears things about the case that will impact the way that they look at the defendant or whether or not the defendant is guilty or innocent before the case begins, that could taint the whole process. Therefore, the judge may say there's a gag order in this. Even though the press may know things, they're not allowed to report it. They are curtailing their freedom of the press in order to do so. A second way is through something called prior restraint. This is when the press will not be allowed to print something if it poses an immediate and direct danger to the United States government or other aspects of the government like the military. We're going to see an example of when this is the case.
And as we saw before, you're going to have different types of activities, additional videos, and a quiz to check for understanding. This lesson and many of the lessons at this level will also include some reading assignments and an essay to complete that will be graded by the system. So you can see there are definitely different types of activities here. Okay, so now we have seen samples from the elementary, middle, and high school courses on Time4Learning. So now let's talk about some other things that are important for you to know. First, on the student dashboard, you may have noticed this Time for Fun button over here. This is just a small selection of computer games that kids can play when they need a little break. You can adjust the settings so they have to spend a certain amount of time learning before they get access to this, and you can also set how long they are allowed to play. These are very simple games and most of them are educational. So it's a fun little extra, but I'm honestly not sure how many kids would actually use this. And that's really it for the student section. So now let's take a look at the parent dashboard because there really is a lot there that I want to show you. So here is the main screen that you will see when you log into the parent dashboard. You'll see the time your kids have spent learning this week up top here, color-coded by subject. And down below, you'll see a report for each of your students, including time spent and activities completed this week. If you click on Manage Students up top here, this is where you can go to update the courses your child is enrolled in. You can also edit their settings to how long you want them to have to work on their lessons before they can play the games, and also how much time they get to spend playing those games. Here you can print a membership letter if you need one, and over here on the right you will find templates for certificates, report cards, diplomas, and transcripts. So that can be really helpful for homeschool parents in states with reporting requirements. And the transcript template is really great to have for when your child is ready to graduate. If you want to update the courses that your child is enrolled in, you can do that here. You can choose up to 7 courses, and you can also add time for math facts. Most of the electives are for middle and high school, so for elementary, you probably aren't going to use the 7 courses. But for older kids, there are several good choices for additional courses. For an additional charge, you can add time for languages, which is basically Rosetta Stone, but it is a cheaper price if you get it through Time4Learning, where it will cost $59.95 for 6 months. They have a bunch of language options, so it's definitely something to consider if your child is interested in learning a new language. There's also a new add-on called Spark, which is a homework helper designed to work with the middle and high school curriculum. So if you ever need to make updates to what your child is enrolled in, this is where you would come to do that. Under Lesson Planning and Reports is where you can make an activity plan for your students. It's also where you can view the scope and sequence for each of the courses. You would do that under Lesson Planning. So you can get down to the details of what is being taught in each grade level for each subject. You can also find the printable resources and view the answer keys for any lesson. If you click on Manage My Plans under Activity Planner, this is where you can create a custom plan for your child or edit a plan that you have already created. So you would start by clicking up here on Create Activity Plan. Then you would select your student and put in your start and end dates for the school year. And then you can also choose which days of the week that you want your child to do their schoolwork on. Then just click on Review Activity Plan Summary, and you'll see how many activities your child will need to do each day, week, and month in order to complete the curriculum in that time frame. Then you will see all the activities mapped out for you on this calendar. So you can see exactly what your child should be working on each day. And they will see their assignments too in the My Plan section of the student dashboard. You can also move things around if you need to, just by dragging and dropping them to a different day. You can also click these 3 dots here to view the details of each of the scheduled activities. You can preview the lessons and view the resources and answer keys. You can also reschedule the activities from here instead of dragging and dropping them. Over here, you will see your child's progress through the curriculum. And if you need to set time off for vacations, you can do that here. If you click on Scored Activities, you can set a redo score for each course if you want to. And if you click on Course Material, this is where you can get down to the details of which lessons you want to include and whether you want to include tests and quizzes. Just click on Edit, and then you can remove anything you want to just by removing the check mark. So if you do, it just removes the lesson or activity, and your child will not see it on their end. You can even remove whole chapters. For instance, if you are starting mid-year and your child already knows some of the material. It's all really customizable, so you can set up your child's learning plan however you want to. If this is all too complicated, just choosing the start and end dates for your school year should really be enough. But it is nice to know you can get down to this level of customization if you need to. And if you want to change something after you have set it up, just go to Manage My Plans, click to go to the Activity Plan Summary, and then click Edit. Under Reports, you can generate custom reports that you can save or print. Just choose your student, choose Generate Report, and then Custom Report. Then put in your date range, choose which activity types you want to include in your report, and make these other selections, and then you will get a report that you will be able to save as a PDF or print. So you'll be able to access and print these reports for your kids whenever you want to. And finally, under Account and Billing is where you would go to update your billing info, add additional students, or cancel your subscription. Okay, so I think we have covered absolutely everything that you need to know about Time4Learning. We looked at several different courses from elementary, middle, and high school. We looked at the student and parent dashboards. We talked about the price, and I shared some of the features that I think makes Time4Learning unique as far as online homeschooling programs go. If you think this is something that you want to try in your family, don't forget to use the link that I've left for you in the video description so you can save $10 off your first month. And if this doesn't seem like the right fit for your family, don't worry. I have tons of reviews of other programs and curriculum options on my channel, so be sure to check those out. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments and I will be happy to answer. Thank you so much for watching.